What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Collider Interviews YouTube channel for yet another interview for one of my favorite shows out there. We are talking Cobra Kai Season 6, Part 2 with the creators. I don't know how many times, I can tell you how many times I've said this thus far because I can count this high. With Season 6, Part 2, I will have told the three of you a huge congratulations 7 times, going to be 8 when Part 3 comes out because you tee up the final 5 so well here. So again,
oh yeah, well, we're only on Part 2. We got Part 3 coming.
Yeah.
Before I start to dig into Part 2 specifics here, I wanted to ask you a broader question about releasing a season in 3 parts. And this is a question that I'd probably like to revisit a little later down the line when you're further in the process. But thus far, having released Part 1 and being about a week away from the release of Part 2, what would you say is the most surprising thing about releasing a single season of TV in 3 parts?
I don't know if it should have been surprising or not. Early on when we did, every season was 10 episodes. And we were always sort of hesitant to, switch that up, that pattern. When doing this final season, we knew that we had more story to tell than 10 episodes, and 15 felt like the right number. So we landed on that. It had been a while between seasons. So the initial thought was, okay, well, let's divide this up into 3 seasons or 3 parts within the season. Each one is their own distinct part, as people who've seen 1 and 2 will definitely feel, and you'll feel that in the 3rd. And we're excited about all of that. By dividing it up and dropping 5, just the ravenousness of fans to get those next 5 was at a level even more intense than we could have even imagined, which was, a good thing in the sense that people were excited and desperate for more. And also we felt bad for the fans because, the thought was, okay, well, we're getting them episodes earlier. Like if we give them all 15, then they'll have to wait like a full year more. And they've been dying. They've been all over us to get some episodes out. So we got 5 episodes out and it wasn't enough. So we're excited that people get to see this next 5. Hopefully that'll give them their fix for a while. But we think that this one is action-packed and a lot of fun.
You have made an incredibly bingeable show. I think that's part of I just can't believe how quickly I always fly through all of the new episodes. I want to follow up on one thing you mentioned briefly, that each part is going to feel distinct. Can you now tease how Part 3 is going to feel distinct from 1 and 2?
Part 3 has to answer for everything that happened in Part 2, particularly what happens at the end of Part 2. And, we pull a giant rug, it's something we haven't done to this level before. And hopefully it upends any audience expectation about what's going to happen and where we're going. Because what we want is for people to come in not saying, here are the 3 things yet to happen, and I'm just waiting for them to happen. We kind of wanted to get to that in the middle. And we like being in a place where you can just you have an anxiousness of, well, where do you go after that? And how does the show respond? How does the world respond? And we have to wrap up this series in the way that we've always planned to wrap it up. So, we painted ourselves into an intentional corner knowing how we were going to get out. But I'll say that last 5 should have an expectation of the great unknown and the hope for explosiveness.
I'll ask one more question about Part 3 before I backtrack to certain beats I want to hit in Part 2. Is there going to be a time jump between Part 2 and Part 3, or is Part 3 going to kick off in Barcelona?
Anything is possible, Perri. I will say, we're going to be covering the, the span of time that, our students on the show graduate high school. So, we're going to leave the series, with you knowing where their childhoods ended up and as they go off into adulthood. So, can't say exactly what happens in episode 6'11", and whether we're still on the mat with Kwan's blood, or if we're, years later in Nantucket at Miguel's, crab shack. But you'll find out the fate of our characters.
All right, I'll take that for now. I can't wait to see where it picks up. Backtracking a little bit, one of the first big things that I have to ask you about is incorporating Terry Silver into season 6. At what point during the writing phase did you know that he would return and play such a big role in the final season? Was it while writing season 6, or is this something that came to mind well before that?
This was the plan all along. When we ended season 5, we knew that we would want to bring Terry Silver back. And when you had 15 episodes, part of the fun, and this is something we've done over the years, is have characters sort of disappear for a while. You forget about them for a little bit, and then they return on the show. And, we knew that as we're going to be, landing the ship at the very end, that we want Terry Silver to be part of that. And that he's, been the biggest bad that we've had on the show, the most unpredictable. So we purposefully did not have him in the first 5 episodes. We knew that he would be lurking in the shadows and working behind the scenes in the middle 5. And we knew that we were going to bring him back in that iconic hot tub. So that was where we were. But we this was all part of the intention as we were designing the season, was that there would be this other dojo that is the biggest threat to both Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do. And then we'd reveal that Terry Silver was behind it.
Talking Terry Silver tees this question up quite nicely for you, Hayden, because you get to share the screen with him in part 2. First, I guess, how did that cameo come about? And then also, are there any new qualities that you saw in Thomas by acting opposite him versus all the other ways you've worked together in the past?
Well, I guess when we were shooting season 5 and we knew that Terry was going to end up in jail and we knew that we wanted to bring him back, I just in my mind thought about his lawyer, his legal team. He's such a villainous guy that you'd figure like he'd have that kind of top-notch lawyer that could get him out of a jam. And that's just something that I've love this Terry Silver character, as Jon and Josh have as well. And I love always just kind of defending him online. So I thought like that would be a fun part. I've always wanted to act, but it's got to make sense and be the right thing. And being Terry Silver's lawyer is in the zone of something I felt like that would come naturally. And then shooting it was fun. I mean, it was the first time I'm acting, so I'm like focused on myself. But I have Thomasine Griffith, giving me one of those full-throated, yells. And at first, I just cracked up. I'm like, I can't believe, I'm caught up in this world. But it was so fun. He's such I don't want to say he's not a method actor. He's Thomasine Griffith when we say cut, but he's just like, right in those seconds before we say action, you just see him like go into character, and it's so fun.
He comes across as someone who always gives 110% of himself to the material the second that action is called. Yeah. So I very much could see that happening. All right, veering into the fights now, I want to highlight one that you were all quite excited about when we were talking in June, and now I can see why. It was the ballet-like fights, the tag team fights, which was so impressed by. What are some unique challenges that kind of fighting style poses for you in the writing and development phase?
Every fight we set out to shoot in these 5 episodes was a challenge unlike we've had before, because we had to reach into our bag of tricks of what we could just come up with out of thin air in a writer's room, and then try to marry that with some sort of reality, talking with, martial artists who have taken part in tournaments all over the world and different events that are unlike, 3 points and you win. That has been, what the Karate Kid franchise was until now. So we started looking at things like tag team tournaments and whole teams on the mat, Royal Rumbles, type of events, things with elevated platforms and balance beams. and we wanted it to feel like the Sekai Taikai has an endless bag of tricks with old events and brand new events that they could pull out at any moment. Like, oh, we haven't done this one since 1973, and oh, this one is premiering this year, and just to feel like that's the great equalizer for the event, that it's not like American Ninja Warrior where you kind of know what that course is going to look like. It's at any given moment they could pull out something that could be a gift for an underdog team, or just could be, something that could demolish everybody. But our stunt team in these 5 episodes especially, I mean, they rise to an occasion that, we needed them to, and they went above and beyond. I mean, it's not just Ken Bearfield and Don Lee. It's everybody who we've worked with now for multiple seasons, if not 6 seasons, a lot of them. And it's a lot of people you don't even see on camera. There are people running a full dojo on set at all times, training actors at lunch and early before call and after call, and working with, utility players who are not only choreographing, but teaching them actually how to do some of this stuff that is now brand new to the franchise. So it was, there's that. And then there's also the mechanics of now you have people fighting, up in the air, on an elevated platform, and trying to keep them safe, and, but also trying to make it look dangerous. So everything just, called upon everybody's set of skills to make sure that the story doesn't get lost in the spectacle, and to make sure that the spectacle feels brand new and fresh.
Before jumping into episode 10, there is one very specific dialogue-driven scene that I wanted to make sure to highlight. It's the locker room scene. What is the key to writing a scene like that serves the characters in this moment, in this competition, but also is something that kind of reflects their whole journey of coming together throughout the series?
It was interesting. We were talking about how, this was the final fight before the individual fights, the captain fights that happen in this tournament. So we were realizing, as our characters do, that this is the last time that they're kind of all fighting together. So we wanted it to be, heartfelt and emotional. We wanted it to also be something that came from the kids themselves, and have, we've seen so many pump up speeches from the senseis, and, those are always awesome. And, you always find a new flavor of them. But we felt like in this moment, this was sort of the coming of age for all of them who have been on this karate journey together, whether they've been rivals at times, but right now and here and now, it's them against the world and them against Cobra Kai. So it was, making sure that in the episodes leading up to this moment, that we built them to a place where they each had some unique and strong point of view, and try to build it in a way that would be fun and unexpected and unlike any of the other pump ups we've had on the show.
I'll just say, multiple of us were standing just off camera in that tight little locker room, and it was hard for the performers to there were times when tears made sense, but the tears were very free flowing, because it kind of was like the end of summer camp, karate summer camp that you've been at for 7 years, and they could feel it. This is the last of the team competing together. And it was, you felt the performer and the character, melding more than ever before in that moment.
This is a really, really beautiful, very effective and well-earned scene right there. All right, now it's time to make the big leap to the episode 10 brawl. The first question I have for you is a little more of a theory question, but did cross my mind. What do you think would have happened if the disqualified dojo wasn't a factor at all? Would that brawl still have happened because Quan hit Robbie during his match? Was that enough?
This is like, what happens if Archduke Franz Ferdinand was not assassinated? Would there have been a World War II if there wasn't a World War I? It's sometimes there's these matches that kind of set the whole thing ablaze, and we'll never know what the alternate reality was, but all the kerosene and gasoline and dynamite and TNT and nuclear material is all there, at its most volatile. in that final match. And sometimes, all it takes is an irate Russian sensei to, smack an official to just let all hell break loose.
I can almost assure that Sensei Ivanov is not allowed back in the Sekai Taikai. I don't know if that's too much of a spoiler, but I don't think he's.
I'm gonna the other thing is I'll just say the way that he's acting there, I really feel like he believes he was cheated. So, which makes me wonder, was there some sort of foul play, eliminating, to eliminate them? And we don't know all the deal with their rivalries, but
in
who knows?
all honesty, that kind of crossed my mind because Terry Silver is very clearly aligned with the Iron Dragons. And I think he wants them to do well because he wants to own the best dojo in the world to an extent. And he wants to embarrass the other two dojos. But I also never trust what he's capable of behind the scenes. If he planted something that then kind of, sparked all of this.
We may never know.
It could be Devin. She's the one who typically likes to plant stuff in other people's water bottles.
So going into the fight and kind of going back to something you had just mentioned with the previous one, there is just so much going on in this particular brawl scene. So I did want to make a point to ask this particular question. What is the key to making sure that a really big set piece like that doesn't feel like a blur of fighting, but rather each beat has a real purpose and some meaning to it?
It's all about the writer's room. It's all about being in that room and bringing each character to a journey so that they have some element of stakes in that moment. We knew that we wanted to have a melee that was bigger than anything we've done on the show before. We had the school fight, which was amazing. We had that fight at the LaRusso house. This was something where we were at a tournament where everyone knows karate. The students know karate, the senseis know karate, and we wanted there to be enough heightened conflict between a million different parties, all that has built throughout the tournament, even little things like, a match between Miyagi-Do and the Dublin Thunder, like little moments like that we're building throughout, so that anytime a character is throwing punches or kicks, that there's some juice behind it. So it was carefully crafting all of the different stories that were going to get us to that point.
Really, like one satisfying beat after the next. And I'll just emphasize, because we don't have time to dig into this part of it, but the music from Leo and Zach there is just so on point, and hearing it evolve every step of the way is really something else, and it elevates everything that we're seeing on screen big time.
Our favorite thing is showing the locked cut to Zach and Leo because they're such fans of the show that they try to stay out of the scripts, and they try to stay out of everything until we all watch it together. So as they're watching the show, we're just watching them. And, we know that something's about to happen that's going to make one of them, excited. And that's one of the best parts of post-production is when we get to that point.
God, I love hearing that. I'm such a fan of their work in general, but this feels like a crowning achievement to me. So now looking at the end of the big brawl, we learn that Mr. Miyagi killed someone during his Sekai Taikai tournament many years ago, and now we have Kwan's death in this modern day one. Why did it feel right to you to kind of connect these two generations via death at this tournament?
There's a lot of parallels between Kreese and Miyagi in terms of, they both fought, in wars. They both have, faced tragedy, with, romantically. They both believed in their own type of, drive in terms of what's right. They both saw the world as right and wrong. And they just happened to be on, completely different islands. And there was something about a little bit of poetic justice of, what's it going to take for Kreese to see something and, finally, possibly, see that black is not black and white is not white, in terms of, is there an end game to what no mercy means, and if somebody fully drinks the Kool-Aid, what are the pitfalls? And we dealt with that a little bit with the school fight with Miguel going so far as to pay the price, but this was obviously a major degree more, and we wanted to kind of bring the whole martial arts community to this place where we've set up this tournament as a place where there have been injuries, there have been deaths. That Mike Barnes tells us that in episode 4. We realize we start to unravel some truths about Mr. Miyagi, and when this happens, it should come out of thin air and kind of out of the blue, and at the same time, it's been set up the entire time that something like this was probably going to happen.
I know I have to let you all go soon, so I'll end with this question because it's a particular moment that really stuck with me. I think it's from episode 10. It's the conversation between Tori and Kim Da-eun, where they're talking about whether it was all worth it, whether focusing so hardcore on karate is worth it. So how can you tease how that might reverberate through part 3 of season 6? Will that be an idea that you continue to play with?
All I could really say about the third part is that all these, character journeys are going to come to an end. And, that doesn't necessarily mean karate is over for them. But, this is the stage in their karate lives where, their high school existence kind of reaches, the conclusion, and they'll always look back on their past. Right now, the kids are still kind of, putting the finishing touches on what will someday become their past. And, so you have your adult characters like Kim Da-eun, who, is who she is because of, her upbringing. And all these characters are going to be confronting, their ultimate challenges in life, whether it's something that's present day or something that haunts them from the past. That'll all come to a head in the final 5.
I can't wait. I assume you don't have a locked release date yet that we can count down to.
Not that we're able to talk about.
Fair enough. In the meantime, I will say huge congratulations on season 6, part 2. Yet again, just can't wait for more. You do it to me every single time, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and congrats again.
Thank you, Perri.
Always a pleasure.